to chapter 11 of the book of Hebrews. And when you go back to the chapter 11 of the book of Hebrews, you see different characters who have run this race before us, who've shown us how we ought to run this race, who's given us persuasive evidence over and over and over again of how we need to run this race of faith. Look at number 4, verse 4. It says, by faith, Abel offered up to God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, through which he obtained witness that he was righteous, God testifying of his gifts, and through it he being dead still speaks. By faith, Enoch was taken away so that he did not see death, and what was not found because God had taken him. Before he was taken, he had a testimony that he pleased God. Verse 8, by faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to God to take a place that he would receive as an inheritance, and he went out not knowing where he was going. By faith, he gives us time and time again biblical characters of evidence to show us that how we need to live and how we need to run this race of faith. Persuasive evidence over and over again. I like this. It says by faith, verse 23, Moses, when he was born, was hidden 3 months by his parents because he saw that he was a beautiful child and that he was not afraid for the kingdom's command. Look at verse 24. By faith, when Moses, when he became of age, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the passing pleasures of sin. By faith, evidence after evidence, fact after fact, giving us an indication to show that we need to run this race of faith. But not only do we have characters in biblical times that show us that we need to run this race of faith, but we got some personal evidence. We got some personal evidence of how we need to run this race of faith. By faith, grandmama, who didn't have nothing but a 3rd grade education, but she knew how to walk with God. And she knew that if God wasn't with her, she wouldn't have nothing to do. But God was showing her that she could call upon the name of God. By faith, mama prayed for me when I didn't have nobody to pray for me. When I was out there in the world doing all manners of sin, my mama prayed for me. And I'm so glad she prayed for me. Had me on her mind. Took the time to pray for me. I'm so glad she prayed. I'm so glad she prayed. I'm so glad that she prayed for me. We got not only biblical evidence, but we have personal evidence. And you need to now look at your life and start to look through down the years of how God has shown you personal evidence of how good and how great God was in our lives. He's given us persuasive evidence for running. But not only does he give us persuasive evidence for running, he gives us proper education to run. Look at the text. Look at the text. The text says, therefore we also, since we were surrounded by so great cloud of witnesses, look at this B clause. It says, let us lay aside every weight and the sin that so easily ensnares us. And then it says, and let us run this race with endurance, the race that was set before us. He gives us proper education. In